sew machine for socks. The cup seam machine, so called because of the cup-like fabric feed wheels, is used to join the side and underarm garment parts together. Here the operative is joining the sleeve, starting at rib cuff and finishing at the underarm. And then joining the side seam, again starting at the rib and finishing at the underarm. Because there are no cut loops on the knitted fabric edges, the cup seam does not need to wrap around them. The full loop shape of the edge of the fully fashioned fabric panel can be clearly seen.
Most garment lengths are knitted from dyed yarns and do not receive a wet process after knitting. However, fully fashioned garments usually do have a wet process, such as dye or scour, following the cup seaming operation. After returning from wet processing, the neck opening is cut out, perhaps the only piece of fabric wasted. This is followed by neck linking. The neck rib is loaded onto the linking points. The cut neck of the garment is placed over the same points. And the second side of the neck rib is then placed in position. Note how, because it is a round neck, the work is done in stages. The final closing of the neck is done by hand.
This remoulded strapper is used to sew knitted strapping on the cut edges of a garment to produce a cardigan. Other processes such as button sewing and buttonholing are done at this time. Part of the final manufacturing process is a careful steaming or light press. This gives the garment a clean, smart look and prepares it for final inspection. Inspection is thorough, with special attention being paid to seams, as well as the overall appearance of the fabric. It is the last opportunity a manufacturer has to stop faulty goods leaving the factory. Packaging of knitwear is usually in clear plastic bags.
A variety of methods are used to make sure garment parts arrive at the correct spot in the factory at the correct time. The methods apply to most of the categories of garments we shall see in this video. The simplest system consists of bundles of garment pieces carried by the supervisor from one workstation to the next. In a more modern method, the garment parts and trims are clipped together and hung from a rail. As each operative completes her part of the garment assembly, she puts the hanger back into the system and pushes it to the next operative. The Eaton system shown here is one of the most sophisticated methods of distribution. It is power driven and can be completely computer controlled. You can see that hangers of garments are leaving and rejoining the main trackway automatically.
In this fourth and final category of garment types, we deal with those such as leisure wear and dresses made from rolls of fabric on circular knitting machines. Also included in this category are underwear, sportswear, and a large variety of children's clothes. These fabrics are knitted from both dyed and undyed yarns. Whichever the yarn, it is usual for all such fabrics to be sent to the dyers for some kind of treatment. In many instances, the fabric will be slit, that is, cut along its length. A needle is left out during knitting, and this produces a line in the fabric which the operative can see and use to keep the slitting knife in position. The single thickness fabric is returned to the factory for cutting.
The cutting system used depends upon the patterning of the fabric. If the pattern has to be made to match at different points of the garment, then hand laying and cutting is used to achieve the required pattern matching. However, if the fabric is plain coloured or has a very small pattern, then multi-lay cutting, which is highly productive, is the rule. The roll of fabric is placed on a laying up machine which runs along and lays the fabric on a very long table. Partly due to machine design and particular operator skills, the fabric is laid down with minimum tension so as to reduce subsequent fabric distortion. A prepared paper pattern is placed above the fabric lay and cutting proceeds. In this instance, an electrically driven straight knife is used. In this next example, blocks of fabric have already been cut from the lathe with the straight knife. A band knife is used for final cutting, particularly when smaller and more intricate shapes have to be cut. Note the chain metal safety glove on the operative's left hand.
There are a number of ways of producing the paper patterns: fitting full-sized patterns to the full-sized lay, or using miniature systems. Whichever method is used, it is important to make maximum use of the fabric available, that is, reduce cutting waste. For very large operations, computer-controlled lay marker and cutting systems are available. The next sequence of pictures shows the Gerber system in operation. Here you can see the lay planner fixing the final gusset of a pair of briefs into the full lay plans using a VDU display. The computer calculates the length of fabric lay and percentage fabric utilisation. The computer feeds the information to the lay marker plotter. In this instance, the plotter does not draw the lay, but records an identification code on the paper for each fabric piece.
The laying up procedure is similar to that which we have already seen. However, after laying, the whole of the table plus fabric moves on tracks across the floor to join up with the cutting table. Air jets from below the laying up and cutting tables lift the fabric, which enable a single operative to manipulate the lay into position ready for cutting. Before cutting begins, a plastic sheet is drawn over the fabric. Suction is applied under the lay, compressing the fabric to make cutting easier. The cutting head, using a special knife, is driven by the same computer program that operated the plotter. Systems such as the Gerber are highly productive and reproducible and are ideal for bulk production.
For fabrics which remain in tubular form, a modified die cutting system can be used. Two tubular fabrics are being fed into the cutter, and each press on the knife cuts two shapes for underwear. As before, the cut garment's pieces are stacked at the back, the stack being automatically moved forward after a predetermined number have been cut. For garments in this category, made up from fabric with cut edges, the overlock is the most common seam used. This is the machine we saw when sewing products from garment length machines. However, the lock stitch machine, similar to the home sewing machine, is often used in the production of ladies' high-class dresses and for special detailed sewing operations, as shown here. Of course, sewing threads play an important part in seam performance. The most common sewing threads are cotton, nylon, cotton polyester. Very often the knitting yarn is used for the cover threads on the overlock seams of knitwear.
We have now looked at the 4 major garment categories within the knitting industry. First, socks, then stockings and tights, and knitwear, and finally leisure wear and ladies' dresses. All that remains now is to dispatch the goods to wholesaler and retailer for purchase by the consumer.